Hi guys, I presume Elon Musk's dodgy dad wasn't available for interview, so LBC reached into some sort of sack and pulled out the next best thing. Let me start off by saying that it's completely pointless having a conversation with somebody who's ignorant and arrogant. Most people, including myself, lack knowledge of one thing or another, but we're open to the possibility of getting informed and improving our understanding of the topic. It's called learning. Millionaire Charlie Mullins is not one of those people. So I have to ask the question, what was Ben Kentish hoping to achieve by trying to argue reality with somebody who's already made up their mind and refuses to accept that reality?
All you lot keep going about not allowed to work. They're illegal. What bit of illegal?
They're not. If they're granted asylum status, they are not illegal.
Stop talking rubbish.
Charlie,
they're illegal.
It's quite a basic element.
They come here with no passport.
They come here. They claim asylum. If they are granted asylum as hold on. Let me just explain to the thing. If they are granted asylum, as 2/3 of them are, they are allowed to work. They contribute. They're not leaving. They're paying taxes here and working here.
Look, they come here without a passport. They dump their passport. Let's not. Why beat about the bush and talk rubbish all the time?
I'm just giving you facts.
Well, I'll give you the facts then. They're illegal. You're creating an argument that you can't win.
I'm not the one that started talking about asylum seekers and claiming people are illegal when they aren't. But I'm happy to move on because it's gone down a very strange route.
Let's move on because you're just talking. You're talking about something we don't need to talk about. And if they're not illegal, why don't they come here with their passport?
Because they're fleeing famine and conflict and persecution. And quite a lot of them do have passports, actually.
What was the point of this conversation? Honestly, what was the point in discussing something that Charlie Mullins clearly doesn't understand with Charlie Mullins? You might as well have spoken to him about quantum theory. But the problem with speaking to him about quantum theory is he'd have an opinion on it, even though he doesn't understand a flying F about it. He doesn't understand the difference between an asylum seeker and a migrant. He doesn't understand what being in the country illegally means, or being undocumented. He doesn't understand these concepts, but he has an opinion on them. That's a massive problem. So what is the value in interviewing somebody who has zero understanding of something? Honestly, he's not an expert on anything apart from maybe plumbing. Have a conversation with him about plumbing. That would be more valuable because he would know something about that. He doesn't understand politics. He doesn't understand the asylum process. He doesn't understand immigration. He has an opinion on them. Doesn't mean that he actually understands them. And he's not in a position where he's going to take a step back and go, okay, educate me on this. Because he kept frigging interrupting. They're illegal. They're illegal. They're illegal. Doesn't understand the term illegal. Doesn't understand the term. He doesn't understand the meaning of the word asylum seeker. The concept of asylum seeker, sorry. He doesn't understand these concepts. He doesn't understand these words. He has an opinion on them because he has now aligned himself with Reform UK. And Reform UK's position is they're all illegal. They need to be deported. Deport them by whatever means necessary. To hell with the consequences. France needs to take them back. They shouldn't be in the country in the first place. Nobody is really a valid asylum seeker. And they can't be asylum seekers because they don't have passports or whatever. So he's bought into all of this rhetoric without actually applying any critical thinking skills. And why is he interviewed? This is just like Elon Musk's dad. Why is Elon Musk's dad interviewed about politics in Britain? Why is he interviewed about anything? There's no problem interviewing somebody who's willing to be educated. But these individuals, these narcissists, don't believe in education. They don't want to be informed. They have their opinions and they just want to brute force those opinions into the minds of everyone else. Well, I'm right and you're wrong. I'm not willing to accept the position that I could be wrong. I think a great approach to these people is to ask them, first of all, could you be wrong about immigration? Because if they say no, then close down the conversation because they're not interested in having a proper adult conversation. I understand that maybe what LBC is doing here is just getting clicks and likes. Get Charlie Mullins on. He's a bit strange, he looks a bit weird, and he attracts people's attention. Get Elon Musk's dad on for the same reason. but it doesn't actually further any conversations. It doesn't actually help society having conversations with these individuals, because they're ignorant and proud of it. And that's not what we want in politics, and that's not what we want in a society.